For centuries he was feared, mocked by gods, feared by mortals, the god of war who lived not for victory, but for the battle itself. But what if Ares never truly faded into myth? What if he's still here? Welcome to Decoding the Myth Olympus, where ancient legends meet modern truths. Today we uncover the final chapter in the story of Ares, not as a relic of the past, but as a fire that still burns within us.
Which of Zeus's children did he hate the most? If you're thinking Kratos, you're not entirely wrong. But in actual Greek mythology, Kratos wasn't Zeus's son, the real god of war, the one born from both Zeus and Hera, was the one Zeus despised more than any other. His name was Ares. Zeus didn't just hate Ares, he hated him so much that he created an entirely new god of war, Athena, just to replace him. And how did he do it? Zeus gave birth to her by himself, from his own skull, cracking his head open just to push her out into the world. Do you realize the level of loathing you have to feel for your son to literally split your head open and give birth just to replace him? To Zeus, Ares wasn't just flawed. He was disgraceful, a savage beast who worshipped violence, not the strategy or honor of warfare. Where Athena represented wisdom and tactics, Ares was chaos in armor. Humans hated him too, because Ares never chose sides. He just kept the war going, feeding on death, prolonging bloodshed. Even the gods, each of them no stranger to cruelty, looked at Ares and said, "Dude, chill." That's how obsessed he was with violence for its own sake. Even the Spartans, yes, the Spartans, didn't worship Ares. They worshipped Athena, because even warriors knew brains beat brutality on the battlefield. So, who was Ares really? Was he a monster? Or was he just a son, desperate for his father's love? Maybe Ares only chose violence because it was the only way he could get a reaction from Zeus. Not praise, not love, just attention. And if pain was all he could offer, then pain became the language he spoke. Ares, the unloved, the unwanted, the outcast. He became the very thing they feared, because no one ever gave him the chance to be anything else. But that's only the beginning. In the next part, we'll uncover the darker truth behind Ares' obsession with death, and how he nearly broke the world just to feel something.
Born of power, yet abandoned by love, Ares was not forged in Olympus. He was forged in rejection. And when no one offered him compassion, he turned to the only thing that gave him meaning: war, death, blood. Not for honor, not for justice, but for the thrill, for the scream, for the only moment he ever felt alive. There was once a time when no one died. The world stood still, soldiers clashed, but no blood was spilled. Why? Because Thanatos, the god of death, had been chained, tricked by the cunning king Sisyphus. And without death, war became meaningless. But Ares, he couldn't stand it. He didn't care about Sisyphus's cleverness. He didn't care about fate. He only cared that the screams had stopped. So he did what no one else dared. He freed death itself. He unchained Thanatos with his own hands just to bring death back to the battlefield. Because without death, war was just a game, and Ares didn't play. War wasn't just Ares' passion. It became his family, literally. He fathered two sons, Phobos and Deimos, fear and terror. Not metaphors, not nicknames. They were gods, born from his bloodlust. When Ares rode into battle, they rode with him, one on his left, one on his right, as if his very soul was flanked by nightmares. But there was one enemy Ares could never conquer. Not a hero, not a monster, but his own sister, Athena. She was everything he was not. Strategic, calculating, adored by mortals and gods alike. And every time they clashed, she beat him. Once with a rock to the head. Another time, she guided the mortal Diomedes' spear, and it pierced Ares' divine flesh. A god, wounded by a mortal, humiliated, Ares flew back to Zeus, bleeding, broken, only to be met with silence. Zeus didn't care. But even a god of war can love, and Ares loved his children. When his son Kychnos, a violent killer of pilgrims, was slain by Heracles, sent by Apollo, Ares rose to avenge him. He stood before the mighty Heracles, ready to fight to the death. But who stepped in? You already know the answer. Athena, again. She blessed Heracles, and once more, Ares was defeated. He loved, he lost, he raged. He was never enough. Even the one light in his life, Aphrodite, was given to another man, Hephaestus. Not by choice, but because Zeus said so. Even his love was stolen from him. Ares, the unloved, the unchosen, the defeated. In the chaos of Olympus, amid the betrayal, the ambition, the power games, there was one moment of stillness, one spark that felt real. Ares and Aphrodite, the god of war, the goddess of love, fire and silk, violence and beauty. They saw each other, and the world fell away. From the very first moment, it wasn't lust. It was recognition. Two forces born of extremes, one of pain, the other of passion. Together, they felt whole. But Zeus never allowed peace in Ares' life. Even knowing Aphrodite and Ares loved one another, Zeus forced her into marriage to his other son, Hephaestus, the god of fire and forge, crippled, quiet, unwanted. Aphrodite wept, but the gods don't care for tears. Still, she never stopped loving Ares, and he never stopped returning to her arms. But love in Olympus is a dangerous thing. Behind closed doors, their love burned. Ares and Aphrodite defied Zeus time and time again, and for a while, they were gods in their own world. But no secret is safe forever. Hephaestus discovered the affair, and he set a trap. He forged an invisible net, caught them in the act, and summoned the gods to witness their shame. Laughter, mockery, humiliation. And once again, Ares was the butt of Olympus's joke. Yet even amidst the shame, their union bore fruit. Ares and Aphrodite had many children, each one a reflection of the strange love they shared. Phobos and Deimos, fear and terror, who rode into battle beside their father. Harmonia, the goddess of harmony, a symbol of peace born from war and love. Eros, passion itself, the spark of desire that drives mortals and gods alike. Isn't it strange that even the most brutal warrior in Olympus could father gods of beauty and balance? But none of it was enough. Not love, not legacy, because Ares was still the outsider, feared by mortals, mocked by gods, and forgotten by his own father. He loved fiercely, he fought blindly, he suffered silently. And in the end, Ares wasn't just the god of war. He was the god of suffering caused by the absence of love. His wrath, a cry for recognition. His violence, a substitute for tenderness never given. He loved. They laughed at him, they cursed him, they rejected him. In Greece, Ares was the monster, the embarrassment, the villain to be defeated. But across the sea, a new world was rising, one that didn't fear war, it worshipped it. And in that world, Ares was no longer the outcast. He was reborn. He became Mars. To the Greeks, Ares was reckless, bloodthirsty, an embodiment of chaos. But the Romans, they saw discipline, honor, order through power. Where the Greeks saw a savage, the Romans saw a protector. Where Greeks feared war, Rome was built by it. They gave him temples, they gave him songs, they gave him glory. In Roman myth, Mars wasn't just a god, he was the father of the Roman people. According to legend, Mars fell in love with Rhea Silvia, a Vestal virgin. Their union, divine or violent, depending on the telling, gave birth to Romulus and Remus, two twins, abandoned, raised by a she-wolf, and destined to found the greatest empire the world had ever seen, Rome. Mars was not their shame, he was their origin. The god of war had become the god of nation building. But make no mistake, Mars was not just Ares with a Roman name. Ares was chaotic, emotional, impulsive. Mars was strategic, disciplined, and respected. Mars wasn't the god of bloodlust. He was the god of the justified war, the one fought for duty, not for rage. It's strange, isn't it, that a god once mocked became the very symbol of Roman virtue. Mars' influence went beyond myth. The Roman calendar named a month after him, March, the season of battle. Before every war, the Romans prayed to Mars. Before every harvest, they asked for his blessing. He was protector, conqueror, and father, all in one. And when emperors rode into battle, they claimed to descend from Mars himself, wielding his favor as divine right. Ares was unloved, unwanted, forgotten, but Mars ruled the known world. This wasn't redemption, this was resurrection. The god of war had been transformed, from Greece's failure to Rome's foundation, from the monster under Olympus' table to the god etched in marble and empire. But the story doesn't end in Rome, because war never dies, and the echoes of Ares still live on, in every battlefield, in every soldier's cry, in every nation that claims to fight for peace. In our final chapter, we look beyond myth, beyond Olympus, beyond Rome, to ask one question: what does it mean to worship war? And has Ares ever really left us? The myths are old, the temples are ruins, the empire is dust, but war remains. And where there is war, there is Ares. He was never just a god on Mount Olympus. He is every cry on the battlefield, every fist raised in rage, every heart that beats faster in the face of violence. Ares never died. He simply changed his face. Ares was born from divine blood, but he lives in us. Every time we glorify war, every time we paint soldiers in gold and cover the bodies in flags, every time conflict is sold as glory or violence becomes justice, we breathe life into Ares again. He doesn't need temples anymore. He has nations. He has ideologies. He has us. But is war always evil? Even Athena, goddess of wisdom, led armies. Even Mars was honored by farmers for protecting the harvest. Sometimes war is necessary to defend, to protect, to survive. But Ares, the Ares of pure bloodlust, he's different. He doesn't fight for purpose. He fights because it's all he knows. He lives in the general who wants one more war, in the leader who stokes division for power, in the child who learns to glorify the gun before the book. He's in the news cycle. He's in the movies. He's in the money made from every missile launched. And when peace talks fail, when humanity screams instead of listens, Ares smiles. We think of Ares as the villain of mythology, but maybe he's not the villain. Maybe he's the consequence, the product of unloved sons, of power without restraint, of a world that chooses might over meaning. And just like in myth, he's never the hero, but he's always there because we keep inviting him back. So what now? If we want Ares to fade, not just as a god, but as a force inside us, then we must learn to love what he never could. We must choose wisdom over rage, understanding over vengeance, Athena over Ares. Because the gods only live as long as we let them. And perhaps it's time to let this one go. Thank you for joining us on this journey through myth, memory, and meaning. From Olympus to Rome, from battlefield to boardroom, Ares has never stopped marching. But now that we know his story, the question is, will we repeat it or will we learn? Ares was never just a god. He was a reflection of rage, of war, of us. But perhaps by understanding his myth, we can begin to rewrite our own. If this story spoke to you, subscribe to Decoding the Myth Olympus. For more timeless tales reimagined, where myth is not just remembered, it's understood.